partner, Adair. Say hello, Adair.
Joining us tonight. We have a mediocre show planned tonight. Mediocre. I just came back from the woods. I became a man.
What are you, like Shia LaBeouf?
Like camping sucks.
I love Shia LaBeouf. Honestly, I really do love Shia LaBeouf. I like my favorite Shia LaBeouf is like angry militant Antifa hobo Shia LaBeouf. It's like who would have thought? Yeah, who would have thought that Shia LaBeouf would even like Louis Stevens would grow up to be like the most radical like anti-fascist celebrity. It's like we have a great celebrity culture now. It's like Fran Drescher, Danny DeVito, and like Shia LaBeouf. But let's just get ahead of ourselves. Next up is John McDonnell, my favorite white ally.
Hey, what's going on?
The white slave. What's up?
Yep, absolutely. I don't know, man. Like I missed doing the show last week. I got to say, it's this is kind of an output that is necessary for talking politics and talking shit about people. So thank you.
Yeah, this show is kind of a vanity project. By kind of, I mean it's absolutely a vanity project. And it's very cathartic for me to do. Otherwise, what the fuck am I doing about politics? And we have a special guest host tonight. Special guest host is the lovely, the wonderful, the dubiously named the Noah Changa. Say hello, Noah.
Hi, everybody. I'm not a big bad dragon lady. See, smiles.
That has me nervous.
Like, I piss rainbows and stuff.
Whatever, black girl magic and all that shit.
Black girl magic, yes.
Let's get
Slay queen.
Just real quick, we are officially the blackest show on YouTube. Check it out.
I don't know. There's some pretty black shows on YouTube.
There's some black shows on YouTube.
I don't know.
There's some like black nationalists. There are some black nationalists.
From me being an embarrassing mixed kid to Brandon being the black kid nobody ever likes to talk about. There's no out there killing everybody. Richard's got the dread.
This is too much inside baseball. Let's get to the first topic of tonight. The first topic I want to talk about is that, for case you didn't know, the Democrats launched their new slogan on Monday. Although it leaked a little early from Jeff Stein. For case you didn't know.
Sorry. I was trying to be a good big sister and start sharing the link. I didn't realize the stupid sound would come on. Damn you, Facebook.
It's fine. Anyway, the slogan leaked early, as reported by Jeff Stein from Vox on Twitter, and initially it was reported as better skills, better jobs, better wages. Eventually, he rescinded that initial tweet and said that he didn't have the full slogan down. The full slogan is a better deal, better skills, better jobs, better wages. So initially, first thing I thought was, okay, the Democratic Party has completed their inevitable transition into DeVry University. Right, we saw the Asif ad that was essentially an ITT tech ad, and this is essentially a slogan for an online university where you can learn how to be an IT professional. Like the Democratic
Everybody learned to code.
Everyone learned to code. So I know what I think about it, but I want to get some initial thoughts from the panel. So Richard, let's start with you, Richard. What did you think about this slogan? What jumps out at you?
I mean, it reminded me a little bit of the Daft Punk and Kanye inspired songs, Better, Stronger, Faster, that's what I initially thought. And then I was also thinking about what does better mean to the Democratic Party? And what I came to was better means better than Donald Trump and possibly the Republican Party. So when they say better than, they're just suggesting better than whatever Republicans are going to offer, and it doesn't mean better than what we have now or better than what we had in the past or actually better, just better than whatever the Republicans are going to try and propose, which at some point may be, internment camps at this point, the way that the Republican Party's heading. But go ahead.
better trucks to take you to the camps.
Right? Air conditioning, black drivers,
air conditioning trucks, like hybrids. Like hybrids, driverless trucks. Better for the environment, less likely to crash. So John, what do you think of the new slogan?
I thought it was just a steaming pile of shit. It gets to the whole thing.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Tell us how you really feel, though.
Really? That's a surprise.
Yeah, it gets to the whole thing we were talking about their entire message is centered around the individual rather than about collective power or collective moving towards something else. Like we're going to get better skills. That's all about the individual. That's not a matter of like, we're going to get better skills for American society. No, we're going to get better skills for an individual so that they can pull themselves up by their bootstraps to affect the material conditions, rather than we're going to fight to make sure that everyone has better material conditions inside the U.S. That's not what they're about. That's not what they're ever going to be about. Right now, there's a Republican who's putting forth a single-payer bill that matches Conyers' bill from the House into the Senate to try and make Democrats vote against it. And I know for a fact, probably the majority of them are going to vote against it. They don't care.
Well, I mean,
they have no plan, and they're going to continue on as they always have. And this is just a similar thing, just new rhetoric.
Well, I mean, it's a single payer amendment. If I'm not mistaken, it's by Senator, I want to say Stain or Stain.
Stain, I think, yeah.
Right, which is a pretty on point name for a Republican senator. And in a lot of ways, like that particular amendment, I understand it. Like it is a trap. It's like I mean, like for people, like I know David Thoreau is tweeting about it. Like the idea that I'm kind of maybe more agreeable to the idea that you wouldn't sign on to the amendment for a bill that doesn't actually exist, right? Like they're like, it's an amendment for a bill that does not actually like functionally exist. And so like in some ways it's a trap. In some ways it's a trap.
Yeah, but it's a trap they fell for.
There is no way. There is no way to actually not fall for that trap. Because if you vote for it, you're voting for something that you don't know what it's actually attached to. Mm-hmm. And if you don't vote for it, you come across as like Democrats are not voting for single payer, right? That's not that. I mean, now when you look at that over the course of like the legislative history of single payer, it paints a starker picture, because we do know that. So back, I want to say in 2010, there was going to be a vote in the House on single payer. The John Conyers single payer bill that was sponsored by Kucinich and Conyers, that was pulled because they didn't want Democrats to have to embarrass themselves by not voting for single payer. So like there is a history of Democrats like not voting for single payer, or sort of weakening the argument or legislative process around single payer to avoid compromising the appearances that their party actually wants that. So like this does have that history, and so to pretend like it's only a trap and not something the Democratic Party is having troubles gripping, has had troubles engaging with historically is disingenuous. But I still want to keep with the first impression. So Anoa, first impressions of the new slogan. Will you go to Democrat University? Will you take online classes with them?
And you better have tuition, because they ain't playing about that.
Didn't you all hear? You don't know? You don't already know? I'm like one of the deans of Democratic University, apparently. You know what I'm saying? I work for Hillary Clinton. I was at the DNC last year in Philly,
I was.
Wheeling and dealing behind the scenes. No, I was there. I found this out on Twitter yesterday. Apparently, I was at the DNC in Philly. John, didn't you guys see me? I was there. I was making deals. I was working for Bernie to get with Hillary.
The funny thing is, like, of the people on this panel, like, you're like one of the only people who wasn't in Philly. I was in Philly.
I was supposed to be in Philly for that weekend. I was supposed to be with you guys in Philly that weekend and got sick. But no, seriously. So what do I think? I think it's a flaming pile of dung. I mean, people. Well, okay, good, because I'm trying to.
It's a bucket of warmed up spunk. It's fine.
Actually, I do. But no, seriously, right? It's like, this is really the best. You guys should have stuck with it. At least we're not the other guys one, right? Like, because this one's like
this is way better than that.
No, this is it's incoherent babble. I don't even understand what the hell it's supposed to mean. I still don't know what they stand for. I'm still trying to figure this all out. I mean, we'll get into, I know there are other stuff you want to talk about too, but like, it's really questionable and suspect, and they're trying to fix this without actually fixing it. And it's really sad. It's like putting, duct tape on a hole in the wall. Like, it's just bad. It's just really bad.
Okay, so I mean, I do definitely want to engage with the slogan first, right? Because there is an underlying set of platform positions that that goes with this, right? Like we know what the better deal is in their own words. It's raising the minimum wage. It's job training as funded by sort of what would you call it? Tax credits to employers, to small business owners. Like that's their solution, of course, going to the private market. It's, some sort of vague language about negotiating for drug prices, and it's actually a relatively decent, some people would call it a relatively decent proposal for breaking up monopolies and preventing monopoly mergers. Now, it doesn't go far enough. That's not for me to say. People like David Dayen thinks it's a good, step forward in the right direction, and it definitely harkens back to, again, like, so this New Deal, which is what they're trying to harken back to, that sort of FDR New Deal kind of language, right? So, like, the monopoly aspect of this better deal, which is not being emphasized, which I would say is, like, really the most important part of the better deal, and I'll get back to the slogan in a second, is really the core of it. It is showing that they're like, to me it says, okay, well, at least kind of rhetorically, they're willing to take on one of the biggest problems with the the culture of companies in America, right? We have Amazon who's eating up companies. We have Facebook eating up companies. We have Google eating up companies. Like, paying better attention to that is important. That being said, forgetting that for a second, the slogan itself is, it's a warm the bucket of spunk, as I said. And the problem is that, like, there are things to remove from it to make it better. Like, first, get rid of deal. Like, I think it's time for the Democratic Party. I said this before. It's time for the Democratic Party to move away from the language of deals. I understand they want to index Roosevelt. They want to index the New Deal. They want to end up LBJ. They want to index, their past victories as it comes to the working class. Cool, but I think that I would argue deal has been, in some ways, co-opted by Trump now. It's like the language of deals has kind of been co-opted by Trump. And also, when you consistently bring up FDR, like, you sound like a retired prize fighter. Like we can do better than FDR. We can start moving forward. And what I would like to see from them, I would like to see, hey, here's a promise, a guarantee. Get rid of all the language. Like, listen, fuckboy, if you vote for the Democrats, you won't go broke if you get cancer. Like, vote Democrat. Like that. Like, that's a better slogan. But, like, and I think John hit the nail on the head right there. It's that first part, right? It's the better skills part. It's like that part speaks to me. Refusal to accept the realities that unemployment and underemployment are not a personal, intellectual, or skill deficit on the part of citizens. It's a ethical and structural failure. It's a systemic issue. It's like, it's not that people don't have the proper skills, whatever those proper skills be, are, which, let's be honest, it's coding. It's always coding. Like, it's always code for coding, which is an awful sentence. And the fact that they couldn't just put out a slogan that said, hey, a better deal, better jobs, better wages, is very telling of where their mentality is at, which is that, like, people have to take a personal responsibility for learning the skills that make them marketable. And frankly, again, I'll end it here, is from my perspective. I would like the Democrats to move away from this mentality of, we're going to make things more accessible. We're going to make things more affordable. We're going to make people more marketable. Like that sort of neoliberal means testing, tax credit. We're going to help you pay for healthcare, and move towards the language of, hey, this is a jobs guarantee. We're going to guarantee you a job. We're going to raise the bottom floor. For the glass ceiling is great. We got to have a female president. We got to have black people in boardroom. That's perfectly interesting and fine. But before that, we have to raise the bottom floor. We have to move away from equality of opportunity and move towards equality of outcome. Anyone want to comment on that, or are we gonna?
No, I'm good. That's pretty good stuff.
I guess quickly I'll mention, I know I made a tweet in response, I think something that Joy retweeted or something, and I think Noah happened to be one of like 12 people that saw it, mentioning that essentially there's a fundamental belief among the Democratic Party that basically if you don't have a job, it like you said, it is a personal failing, and they're not going to be there for you, like they don't represent you. And they don't have a plan to adjust society in such a way that if you can't find, or that if you don't find a job within society that satisfies what they think should earn you a living, then you just basically don't deserve to be able to earn a living. You shouldn't be able to exist, essentially. Like, I mean, or only on the charity of others, essentially, is where they end up leaving you. No different than the Republicans at that point.
I mean, no, it's different from Republicans in a certain sense that like they want to provide you the skills to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It's like, you know, Republicans are just like, fucking it, we'll throw you into the wild with the woods. We'll go full fucking Sparta on you. It's like, we're gonna throw you to the wolves, put you into the woods. You know, you got to find your way back, fight all of the beasts of the night. And if you succeed, you succeed. If you don't, you don't. Democrats are, you know, slightly less craven in that sense. They don't want us all working on, you know, in the Amazon lithium mines. But they're like, hey, we'll provide you the tools to raise yourself up, to pick yourself up the bootstraps. And, you know, so because we don't want to, you know, remove the aspect of personal responsibility from the culture of America, right? Like there is still just sort of neoliberal, conservative, ideological demand that we have to have personal responsibility. And the fact that you can't live in any, the fact that you can't live in any state, that you can't find an apartment or that you can live in on a minimum wage in literally any state is not viewed as a problem of the system. It's just, you know, we don't have enough skills. And I don't understand how you could have a problem so ubiquitous. Like literally, like there is barely any places in America, 99.9% of counties in America, you cannot afford to live on the minimum wage by yourself, really, or much less feed a family. But that's not viewed as a systemic problem. It's viewed as an individual, like it's viewed that like what? Everyone in America who has an individual or intellectual failing. And from my perspective, it becomes very, very hard to engage with that mentality without disrupting the entire structure by which the Democrats exist on, right? Yeah. And questioning, like, do you really understand what made the New Deal popular, right? It's like do you really understand? Do you really understand the values of your most popular programs? Because, like, you know, you reference them. You reference Medicaid. You reference Medicare. You reference Social Security, which are again the most popular and successful programs that have ever existed in America. And you use language that references the time which they actually exist, you know, they were created with them. But you don't seem to be able to understand like what makes them popular. And I can tell you, right, it's the fact that they are a guarantee. It's the fact that they provide the present, or rather they provide the future with more tangible qualities. You know, if you're on Medicare, if you're on Medicaid, if you're on Social Security, you have, like, your future has a certain measure of like tractability, like stability, right? Like you know what you can plan for. It's like, hey, on the 15th of the month, on the 16th of the month, I'm going to get X amount of money. Like it removes the uncertainty and the fear from the future. That's what makes them popular. And that's why I say, like, move away from referencing these things rhetorically and start really referencing what makes them popular. That the fact that they're guarantees, institutional guarantees.
And successful guarantees. I mean, if you look at the success just monetarily of the program, most of these programs are running with overhead that is like a fraction of what the similar programs in the private sector are running at. These programs are incredibly beneficial to the American people and efficient. I mean, yes, they have problems, but the problems they have are not to the same degree that similar programs in the private sector have.
They only have the problem that Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security have are largely ideological problems, right? It's like insofar that they are institutions and infrastructure, like where they break down for our political establishment is that they don't sort of fit into this, you know, paradigm of choice and hard work and means testing. Well, I guess, you know, Medicare does.
Yeah,
no, Medicaid does.
Medicaid does.
But like, so it becomes hard to assuage that discrepancy, which is why, you know, this is why they run away from them. So, like they run away from the material effects of them, because like it's just not ideologically feasible for them to support those material effects.
Well, not only that, but I mean, you know, let's say Social Security. Social Security has a funding problem because we've essentially, as a government, decided that we can raid the Social Security fund whenever we want and then never have to pay it back. But the problem is that it's an easy fix. We're solvent for the next 20 years, and all you have to do is raise the cap slightly. But no one wants to talk about raising the cap slightly because the people that it will affect are the richest people in the country. And so no party, neither one, is going to go after those people because those are their bread and butter donors.
Similarly, I guess also the problem with Social Security too is that people, when you say about the insolvency of Social Security, right, which is just generally a lie, or if it's not an outright lie, it's incredibly disingenuous. Like you're talking also about like people, or rather neoliberalism infecting the way people think about the public sector.
Yep.
Like the government, the government being equated to a business that should be reached, that should have profit, should be run like a business, should have the same values as a business, and therefore, well, Medicare is insolvent. It's like it's in debt. It's like the post office doesn't make any money. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? The post office doesn't make any money. Like, well, if you want the post office to make the money, you can turn to a bank.
Yeah, and that's a great idea. That's a phenomenal idea.
I think that's a great idea. If you're really concerned about, competition and the free market and all these things, hey, it's a great competition for like banks like Wells Fargo and Chase and all other sort of places.
Criminal organizations.
Don't be rude. Don't be fucking rude at Richard.
I mean,
you know what? God.
Tomato.
Damn it. Tomato. But like, so like it's all a grift. But yeah, someone else get in here.
I don't know if Adair want to get in there. I did want to mention.
No, I'm good. I got skipped, so I'm salty right now. I'm gonna go ahead and sit here and marinate. Because Brandon want to talk all night. Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to say that they won't, even rhetorically, that they don't even take on as much as like FDR talking about when the creation of the minimum wage came on. Essentially said that if you can't afford a minimum wage that provides a life, that you shouldn't be in business. You don't have any right to be in business in this country. And you won't hear Democrats saying anything as bold as that. You won't hear them saying that that if a business can't sustain livable wages for its workers, that it shouldn't be a business. That you're not going to hear that. And that's just, and also with what they're doing is Hillary did this great during her campaign, is rhetorically propose ideas that they're going to propose and then allow Republicans to beat back and then explain to the people how they really wanted these policies, but they couldn't get them because Republicans are just too good at messaging to their base about why these things are going to be terrible for them, and we're going to always lose these political battles. So instead, we're going to have a deal or a compromise that basically does something like the ACA, ensures profits for the corporate donors that are fearful that any sort of the progress that we're trying to make will actually impact their bottom lines. But we should get Adair in here at some point on something before he gets too salty, turns into a pillar.
I'm marinated right now.
There's in a blind, so Noah, you get in here.
No, as well. Thoughts, Noah?
So yeah, thoughts. I pass. You guys are like way too intellectual for like Thursday night.
That's the lawyer.
I just wanted to come in here and like have fun and talk shit and chew bubblegum and like kill aliens, and you guys are like all deep and introspective and like, dude.
I mean, on a serious note, because I'm less salty right now, I'm gonna go ahead and suck up my pride.
See, I bought Adair some time. Go ahead, Adair.
After the big sister does. But it is an issue though to have this kind of slogan, to just basically ignore what a lot of America is seeing right now with this whole idea of you just need to have better skills, need better training. To a lot of people, especially in rural America, this idea that you have to go to some kind of college or university, it's an elitist idea at its foundation. The fact of the matter is we need farms. The fact of the matter is to work the land, and it's a good, solid living. What the Democrats should be running on is saying, guess what, middle America, we care about you too. It's not just about going and getting the skills. It's not just about, as Brandon put it, this ICT tech commercial. It is about going out and taking care of everybody in this country, especially the people that take care of us. I am a city person. I don't like the woods. I hate the woods. I hate being outside like that. So y'all going out there, you guys who are farming, you guys who are feeding this country, they need help too. And so it's not that the Republicans are great at tapping that. It's not like they're beholden. It's not like the Republicans cast a magic spell over the entirety of the middle of America. What they are saying is, we hear your pain. We see that you have issues, and we will give you solutions to these issues. Now, mind you, their solutions are horrible, draconian, and wrong. And that's what these people are looking for. That's what everybody is looking for. So for the Democrats to sit up here and be like, oh, well, we'll do a couple of things, you know, we might give you some health care, but really we're going to make you buy it. We're not actually going to take care of you when you're sick. We're going to make you pay money you might not already have. And if you don't have it, then we're going to fine you even further. Continue down this road of just blatant destruction. They're handing the country, they're handing political power to people that are saying, I hear you, and here's my solution, because the other guys aren't doing shit. And that's what it breaks down to.
Yeah, and all their solutions and even all their recognition of the vectors of the problems are all cultural. They're not material conditions. Like you said, it's a matter of like, oh, you know why your small farm can't survive? It's because, you know, the guy down the street is importing illegal aliens to work the fields. Not, there are 16 farming companies in the country that own the majority of all the farms, and they're the ones who are running you out of business by other cotton.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a missed opportunity right there, not the picking cotton part, but like they're going after telecoms, one of the few groups in this country that has a lower approval than Congress sometimes, anyway. But they didn't. They could have went after, you know, like farms and say, hey, we're gonna break up big agribusiness, like and bring back those small farms. That's a way to get to the rural communities that you're trying to get to without having to be more bigoted or more racist or appealing to those.
And not only that, but we're talking people who are, let's say, people who don't have a college degree. You know, you guys know what I did. I managed large scale construction projects. You look around everywhere you fucking drive. Look at the state of our infrastructure. Look at the state of our roads. Look at the state of our bridges. Look at what's happening in Flint. Do you know how many jobs you can create with a new WPA where you go and you actually invest in our infrastructure using public bonds? I mean, holy shit, that's putting half the workforce that's out of work to work right now in low skills but hard and necessary work. You could do that overnight.
Absolutely.
The thing is, go ahead.
John, I mean, but I just piggyback on what John just said. I mean, that's absolutely correct in terms of investment in infrastructure. And I mean, one, because it's absolutely needed, right? Our bridges, our roads. I mean, it's massive. We need a huge investment. But then, like John said, I mean, you instantly put people to work. You skilled, when we look at, I mean, skilled labor is few and far between in some areas, just depends upon where you are and what you're doing. But I really do. I mean, I absolutely agree that we actually have to be willing to, and we, as in those with the purse strings, have to really actually be willing to engage in, you know, spending in a way that's going to not only invest in our communities and in upgrading our infrastructure, but it has that dual impact, just like John pointed out. I also think that, you know, when we're thinking about this whole thing, because it just reminds me of even, you know, the proposal coming out of Chicago in terms of by 2020 having high school graduates must have, you know, something, job, army, military, something lined up, you know, or college. And this type of thing, if you're really going to start making those types of demands on people without giving them opportunities to go to, or actually making sure people have the better skills, right? I mean, it's really easy to say people need to improve their skills. You need to do this, you need to do that. But without the actual investment in programs or training or something to actually give those, you know, opportunities to people. And we're talking about like labor jobs. Some of that stuff is things that the training, the additional work and learning that you do. Like I look at, you know, my partner, he's been an iron worker for like 10 or 12 years now. So much, I mean, of course, it's the initial apprenticeship period, but so much of what he learns, he either learns, you know, in the course of actually doing his job on the job, or there's additional, you know, tests and other things that are built into the process of what they do. So there's a lot that we actually can do to not only lift people up, right, but actually help, you know, improve and better, you know, our cities and communities, whether we're talking about rural or urban. I mean, and this gives folks an alternative, especially when we look at communities like you know, you guys know I talk a lot about what my folks in West Virginia, we look about bringing people up out of the coal mines or out of other, you know, dangerous jobs and conditions. There are a lot of other opportunities that people could be transitioned into, or there's some vocational support folks can go into if that investment and if that value is actually placed on those people or those communities in that way. So, I mean, John, I thought that was a really great point to bring up.
And the thing is, you know, is that no private company is going to go, hey, you know what, I'm going to invest in West Virginia and start a construction company to do infrastructure unless we have the public investment in doing that, which means taxation. Right. Because otherwise, you're not going to create someone who's going to say, you know what, we need more roads out in West Virginia.
Let me incentivize it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the only way to do that, and by the way, this will create a lot of medium to small size businesses that work these types of jobs and to bid on these types of jobs. And, you know, the fact that nobody's even talking about it other than Trump, and Trump wants to fund it by giving all the corporations that have been stashing money overseas a tax break, it's like, hold up now. Why is it that this isn't part of your platform? Why is it that this isn't something that you're talking about? Nope. No, it's just.
It's not only that, but like so.
What's that, granted? That's the thing, though, is when we talk about these cities, when we talk about especially Middle America, and especially about these Rust Belt areas, these areas that were hit hardest when manufacturing jobs left the United States, they all point to the Pittsburgh model, right? They point to the model where, well, guess what? Pittsburgh became a center of banking, became a center of technology, became these other things. It evolved into the quote unquote 21st century without realizing that not every city can be this brand new technological hub, especially in Middle America. We have to meet folks where they're at, not just with what they have, but culturally. We have to go into these places with a cultural sensitivity that, especially those of us that are on the coast, we don't necessarily have. I for damn sure, as somebody from Seattle, Washington, do not understand what it's like to grow up in rural-ass Kentucky. I don't have that. What I have to do is to go in and listen to these things and do what John and Noah said. Create these jobs and try to bring people out of the coal mines. Coal, I know for a fact, is one of those things. It is a cultural thing. It is something people that in a lot of these areas, that is what they have. That is what they believe in. They're like, I have coal. That is it. That is all I know. Because that's all anybody in these regions have been saying, because that's all corporations was that coal. But if we go into these places, if we go in and say, guess what? We can put you to work making windmills. We can build factories where we're producing the products for green energy. We can put these people back to work. We can build roads. We can build bridges. We can do these things. It's not impossible. And like Noah said, especially in things like trade schools, it's such an important thing to do. So many people that I've talked to are like, I don't feel I can do college, but man, I really love cars and I would love to work on cars for the rest of my life. Why don't we train more mechanics? Why don't we train more electricians? Why don't we train more plumbers? Why don't we train these people? The simple answer is it's not profitable.
Well, I mean,
it's the only ethical thing for us to do.
Well, I mean, so I agree with a lot of what you said there, and I think coal is a good example of like of a job that, you know, it's not only about economics, it's become a cultural thing. You know, like coal and coal mining is very tied into like masculinity and other aspects of like West Virginian like life. But like these things, you know, another good topic is like rural broadband, right? It's like why are we not like making internet fast and accessible in rural areas? And you know, you bring up rural broadband and like your everyday average liberal thinker, and this is where I come to grip with the fact that the people who Democratic Party claims to represent, they don't actually seem to like very much. they don't seem to have a very high opinion of them because like they won't care about rural broadband. It's like you know, and that was the point that, you know, Maddie Iglesias made out of Vox, right? Like do you think rural broadband is actually an issue that people in you know these states would vote for? It's like, yes. You can't even stream Netflix. It's like these are red box. These are red box states. Like
that's very real.
Well, just I want to throw in one fact before you guys continue.
But I want to go back to one thing. Wait, John was going to say something. I just want to say
U.S. connection speeds rank 17th in the world. We have one of the richest country in the world.
And if you're up in a holler, it's probably even worse than that.
Exactly.
Because I've had we've had several different people with completely different, you know, internet providers and or cell phone providers, and nobody will have service. I mean, it's really bad. One thing I want to back up, just say something you said about just real quickly about coal mine. I want to make something, you know, when you said something about side of masculinity and stuff like that. Part of it is a lot of people, if they had other options, they would really rather do something else. Don't nobody in their right damn mind like going down there. Nobody in their mind likes doing that work. There's actually a lot of dirty jobs out there in the country that nobody likes to do them. And, you know, people say, well, you know, somebody has to do the jobs, blah, blah, blah. But if we really actually start investing in people, right, and through investing in these different industries, building out, you know, different opportunities economically and structurally, that then itself creates jobs, whether they're small jobs. I really like that point John made as well about, you know, creating more opportunities for small business owners. I mean, small business owners, whether a lot of people like to acknowledge it or not, really do make the world go around. And we need to, you know, be cognizant of that, right? Because I know you didn't mean it that way, but I do know folks get real sensitive about how they're characterized, particularly when it comes from a coal mining background, only because for a lot of people, they really are doing the only thing they know how to do. And the only thing that's I know you didn't mean it that way. I just wanted to clarify.
There are whole towns in Virginia, other places that now do what I do, which was dredging, because their business in those towns dried up, and that's the only thing they know how to do, and they've been doing it for generations. They would rather do something else, but there's nothing for them at home.
Of course, but my point was this, right? When you have this sort of job, like when you take these jobs of necessity, you know what else is like, are the really shitty job that no one actually liked? Being a cowboy. It's just like, and so when a lot of times like, it becomes this issue of like cognitive dissonance, like, in order to make these jobs more, you know, more, I would say, palatable psychologically, like you attach some sort of virtue to them, you know, like a hard day's labor. It's like
there was a pride with the coal mining in that they were like, keeping the lights on in America. Like America would have fallen without these people going into these dangerous coal mines.
But it's true. I mean, it's like it's internal colonialism, and it's internalized imperialism in a way, right? I mean, like literally, like, we look at the way, you know, world powers have raped and pillaged like Africa and other, you know, areas of the world. I mean, the same thing has happened to Appalachia, particularly those areas that have coal mines, right? I mean, literally the extraction of resources and opportunity with little to no investment put back in there. I mean, it's astonishing that people have waited this long to really start to rise up and really start demanding better.
No, I mean, so like my other point was like, yeah, like these are things that are intrinsically attached to culture. They're not things that people enjoy doing or would prefer not to do. I mean, I'm sorry, they are things that people prefer not to do. But like there are aspects of this that, you know, span beyond pure economic needs that, like, you know, like these are just what was it? Ranching is intrinsic to some parts of Montana. And so like these are things, like these are jobs that are hard, they're backbreaking, and because of that, you know, not necessarily despite of it, like they develop, you know, a certain sort of valuation of them. And it's in the same way, you know, you have anytime desperation exists within a segment of population, it creates a culture of like either necessity, like they contend with it psychologically. But I guess I was going to say the transition to the idea of like when we talk about better skills, it's not as, you know, vague as people think it is, because like ultimately we know the Democrats worship the tech sector, right? That's their thing, right? That's why you have the WTF Democrats that are trying to run the drummer from fucking you know, Theory of a Dead Man for Congress. It's like because they worship the tech industry, and like when they say better skills, they mean coding. And like, you know, coding is going to save the world. And I know people have, you know, commented that like if everyone coded, the price is going to go down. And, you know, it's going to have, you know, coders working for basically less than minimum wage. Now, and so I brought up the whole coal mining as like a social signifier, like something symbolic socially, because coding is that too, right? But for the Democrats, it's a signifier of urban cosmopolitanism. Like it's the job of the urbanite, of the urban center of the urban center of them. Like, and so that's what they value, and so they, you know, it's their fix all solution. You know, as a subsection of technology will save us. Like, you know, technology is going to save us. You know, police cameras are going to save us. There's no societal issue that can't be fixed by some sort of weird high-tech savvy solution. Whether it be from everything from police brutality to car crashes can be solved by some sort of, you know, widget, by a $400 juicer.
So see, no, and, you know, I fully admit that I am and for those of you who don't know, most of our fans do, I'm a physicist. I love tech. I love everything about tech. I love the idea of building things and getting better and using technology to make human life.
It's a tool.
But with that, we have to take into account things like job displacement. We have to start talking about things like a UBI, a universal basic income. That's something that I personally, ideal situation, we pass the UBI and we start doing the things that we talked about here because people still want to work. We pass that UBI. People get paid. That's one way to help stop people from having to take on dangerous and dirty jobs. Secondarily to that, we start building an infrastructure. We start investing in middle America. We start saying, you know what, it's no longer flyover country, because that's kind of what it's become. It's become this idea that, well, let's not invest in it because people from the cities people from New York aren't driving to Seattle or LA anymore. Flying, what's the point? we have to build it up because people live there, because people there deserve to live a decent life.
They don't
people
there
deserve to have access to internet.
They don't fucking code there, so they're fucking savages. Have you ever met a coder from Iowa? Like they're fucking savages.
They're corn.
They still go to Blockbuster because there's no rural broadband.
Like that's a serious issue. The fact of the matter is, we complain all the time about how the middle America is not in the 21st century. But the reason why middle America doesn't have the technology that the coast have is because the government and other companies, the government and really companies too, refuse to invest in there. Okay, well, let's build this up as opposed to just being like, let's just take what we can and get the hell out of there. I mean, it is like Noah said, it is imperialism. Even as we speak, it's this idea that if it's not going to produce capital, if it's not going to make us money, who gives a shit? The fact of the matter is people live there, and those people deserve to have the best quality of life possible. Scapegoating 75% of our country because New York has a gigantic ass population. It's not right.
I have two separate kind of connected points I wanted to make quickly. Is one, is there, and it's a question I wanted to ask, is there a chance that there are some places, some cities in those areas that are no longer economically viable as a place and can only exist at the federal subsistence? And like off of the federal government, are there places like that, and what should we do with those communities? And then I'll put that question out there.
Well, here's the thing: manufacturing is not coming back. Period.
Like, we can manufacture manufacturing in the sense
not the manufacturing we had before. Like I agree. Like the Rust Belt can be turned into like the Sun Belt. We have the capability and the need to create enough jobs to employ most of unemployed people in infrastructure or in green energy and some sort of in that sort of pipeline of green energy. But the idea that we're going to be going back to like building cars and stuff, like even when Bernie Sanders was saying that shit, it was a lie. It's like that's not happening. When Trump said it was a lie, when Bernie Sanders said it was a lie, we're post that. Like we need to get. And so far, and that is my last comment on the coding thing is that like for my issue, like it feeds very heavily into like the meritocratic aspect of society that we pretend exists, right? That there are better skills that you can have that somehow insulate you entirely from the excesses of capitalism. Like if you just learn to code, if you just become if you just enter the STEM fields, you never have to worry about like the inevitable constriction of capital and like the upward flow of or being jobless or being a victim of exploitation or or homelessness. When functionally it's not the case, right? All it serves to do really is to demoralize people who have other skills. Like forget like better or worse skills. I mean, I think we can agree that there are like worse skills. But the idea that, well, hey, like only certain things are worth studying, and the things that are worth studying or the skills that are worth having are entirely based on their marketability is a very, very anti-intellectual, very, very, demoralizing, very, very dangerous cultural and social mentality to have. And all it serves to do is make people feel bad about themselves. It's like, it's one of those, and it's a very conservative mentality, one I never really understood, because whenever you hear people that I see a lot in right-wing people who consistently quote philosophy and talk about anti-intellectualism, but are also like it's only certain disciplines are worth learning. You fuck boys, I guess you studied the wrong thing.
I could have ordered if y'all weren't.
But I didn't want to move this topic.
I gotta take you guys to get food.
Don't do that.
I didn't want to move this topic, right?
Don't do that.
Does anyone have any last thoughts?
On this topic,
no. Last thoughts? But I wanted to move because this week it came out that the Senate was in the process of passing a bill that would make, essentially make the BDS movement or any similar movement that was pro-Palestine or sought to boycott Israel, punishable by heavy fines and even jail time, right? Which is especially, under the guise of like, hey, if you boycott Israel, if you don't buy certain products, you are engaging in some kind of economic terrorism. And it's a
$250,000 fine minimum. It's 20 years in prison, and it's only if you are supporting the BDS through the EU or the UN, and it's because it's rooted in justice for Palestine. That is what the bill is based on. You can be a white supremacist and openly anti-Semitic and boycott Israel, and you wouldn't be in violation of the law. Under
but it's home for me.
So
because
AIPAC writes a bill and we pass it.
The bill is essentially everyone has to buy 17 soda streams and eat Sabra hummus every day. It's like that's the bill. But but it's not as though this bill's without any precedent, right? Like we've seen bills of this type arise all over the country, especially at least in my state of New York. There was a similar bill that was anti-BDS. I know there was one. I can't say. I remember which state it was. That said, if you were if your company was pro BDS, it couldn't have any government contracts. But I just think it's interesting within that this bill would arise in the context of this sort of ongoing conversation surrounding freedom of speech being curtailed, right? And how the BDS movement and the pro-Palestine movement are, the biggest examples of freedom of speech being curtailed. But all we hear about is constantly, white supremacists, racists on campus having their free speech violated by those precious snowflakes.
You mentioned that this isn't like a new thing, and it was actually part of something that the Obama administration was pushing to have into the TPP, but obviously since TPP was withdrawn from, that no longer took place. But and this particular bill is bipartisan in nature. It's got a bipartisan sponsor, and has sponsors including Gillibrand from New York, who shares a lot of Hillary Clinton donors, and so it's got wide support, and it's bipartisan, which I don't think we mentioned yet. I just wanted to add.
Well, I think it's key to note that in that bipartisanship, it's mostly the AIPAC people who are going for it. They're the ones that put the bill together. They're the ones that wrote the bill. So that's where the bipartisanship comes from.
That's the thing about it. It is bipartisan, but here's the part about that, especially with it being AIPAC, is this bill has become the de facto to support Israel, right? This bill is being brandished as, if you don't support this bill, you're anti-Semitic. I believe it was Chuck Schumer who actually came out and said people who are part of the BDS movement are either knowingly or unknowingly anti-Semitic, and that's not the case. That's not the case. Because the argument that's being made by AIPAC, by a lot of the people that have signed on this bill, saying, hey, you're just saying you don't like Jewish people by trying to punish the Jewish government. And I'm like, no, that's not what's happening here. And the fact of the matter that this even has bipartisan support is frightening. The fact of the matter that the leader of the Democrats in the Senate is signed on to this. This is all these people talking about, First Amendment. This is literally a First Amendment issue. The ACLU has come out and said, we don't take a stance on either side of the BDS movement issue front to people's political speech. This is against the United States Constitution. Whether or not you agree with BDS at all, this is something that's frightening. All the time about people moving closer and closer towards a fascist state. This is a step in implementing fascist state. This is a step in saying your politics can get you fined $250,000 and put in jail damn near
you're
because you choose not to buy products from Israel.
It's the stuff that they agree on that you got to be worried about. Go ahead.
Yeah, and it's just, you want a concrete example of a foreign government interfering in our electoral process and our politics. This is it, right here.
It is, and you're right. This is an issue of AIPAC and how much power the Jewish lobby wields, and the pro-Israel lobby, and those two things should not be conflated, right? And although and that has been a goal of the Israeli conservatives to conflate Judaism with Zionism, to make the two things inextricable. So to critique one is to critique the other, right? And this is the argument that people have been having all the time. Well, hey, you know what? That Judaism is not synonymous with Zionism. It's not synonymous with Israel. There are aspects, and it's important for us to actually make that discrepancy. To make that discrepancy, and when engaging with policies like this, at the same time, it's worthwhile to note that's the one-to-one comparison that's being made. That's what's being done purposely by people like Chuck Schumer, by people like Macron, who came out and said anti-Zionism is another term for anti-Semitism now, and but it's just further proof, right, that there is no appropriate way. The idea of respectability politics in terms of protesting is it's an illusion. It's a myth. It's like because this is basically a legislative way of saying like there really is no appropriate way to protest Israel. You know, there is no appropriate way to protest the apartheid state that is Israel. There is no appropriate way to protest the brutal oppression of the Palestinian people. Any type of critique of Israel is essentially violence or unacceptable and punishable by, like you said, like heavy fines or jail time.
And the reason why they're so scared of this,
what's BDS? I want to hear what the Big Sis has to say real quick.
All right. Well, I was going to say BDS for South Africa was actually a very prominent and successful movement. So that's why everyone's so up in arms about it for Israel.
Big Sis, what are your thoughts? I don't know if she can hear us.
No, I can't. Hold.
Oh, she's on 1 sec. She's on 1 sec. All right.
I'm sorry. You guys know I'm in the middle of I'm ground zero for the past 6 weeks of the progressive war. Anyway,
what do we
think about this? Real quickly about BDS. I mean, no, the point about the way that BDS, the divestment movement in terms of South Africa, thinking back, I understand. I think it was so beautiful and great when I was a little kid and we didn't drink Coca-Cola and Reebok, and we didn't have Reeboks and we didn't drink Coca-Cola in our family, and I did not understand. I just knew that's what we didn't do in the 80s. But when you look back, that divestment, and there's actually one of my favorite episodes of the show A Different World is actually a divestment from South Africa episode. I mean, that was a really huge issue for HBCUs because of scholarship money and different different corporate entities. But it really did that international pressure. We saw that happen because when you look at the work that was done by folks on the ground in South Africa, and what a lot of people don't know is that the ANC was a diverse coalition of people. It wasn't just Black South Africans. There were people who would be considered colored or white, Indian involved as well, and people had support, and they tried to do things. They tried to have other neighboring African countries help. They've even people were even in Walter Sisulu was even in Britain and tried to get but it was really that international attention that really helped change the condition of things. It took a long time, even with that real impetus. I really think it was once the divestment movement really kicked up into high gear, that things, there was no choice but for things to change. And when you think about it, the economic component to all this, right, and the fact that economic terrorism is becoming a thing, part of my problem with this legislation is, even if it's only very specifically, carefully tailored in the way as Adair explained earlier, I mean, we've already seen attempts, at the state level to pass similar legislation against whether it's Black Lives Matter groups or other groups that would somehow disrupt the flow of commerce. So we already see a beginning to set up, groups that are focused on equity issues, really trying to bring about justice in a meaningful way. Now, whether or not you agree with these tactics or not, but we're looking at a way to further criminalize what is really a founding, bedrock, supposedly, of our country in terms of civil disobedience. And it's very disconcerting to me to see, so-called Democrats. I mean, we already know where they stand, right? We folks have been showing the clip of Kamala Harris's Apex speech. Shout out to John. I stand with John. I mean, everybody likes to have their faves and do mine. I think it's okay that John criticizes Kamala Harris. How about that? Because he's not doing it because she's a Black woman. He's doing it because she has bad policy. Case closed.
And corrupt.
We all don't have to agree on everything all the time, but no, seriously, right? So just thinking about there is a real war that is going on right now in terms of people and our ability, where everyone's all about free speech until it's someone who's actually fighting for justice and equity. People are really willing to let certain folks who would argue against equality and equity and lifting people up, you gotta hear everybody out. But when other groups are actually representing marginalized communities and individuals, it's all of a sudden, no, you can't talk, unity, you're being divisive, whatever. And so there's a real tension there. And so just thinking about, this is something that we definitely can't stand for. We look at the way the Anti-Defamation League and the overuse of the term anti-Semitism. I really had to step back with the Jay-Z lyric debacle, whatever, right? you know, to really understand, because my knee-jerk reaction was, whatever, y'all like throw that, like, oh my God, like you sound like Hillary Clinton people talking about sexism. But you know, it's a very good dialogue for me deciding, refraining from my initial knee-jerk reaction and actually listening to people and understanding a little bit better. While I may not entirely agree, at the same time, I definitely understand the concern and can respect people's discourse on the topic. But yeah, but just I do apologize. I was distracted because somebody who has the word sane in their name did something that was rather not sane, to refute myself and others by using an old video of Cynthia McKinney, because she's a real leader. See, this is what people do.
We're gonna get to that. Let's just wrap up the BDS.
You guys asked me.
I do kind of want to talk about like the progressive civil war that's going on. Even though I try to avoid stupid shit like that, because like it only exists on Twitter, really.
Yep.
Like it only gets on Twitter, so I try to.
Well, I agree and I disagree, and it's going to be really interesting to see how Minnesota is actually for us. I'm actually nervous about going to Minnesota.
It's going to be real shady.
It only exists in a very small segment of the population that is hyper vocal on Twitter and like in their particular fan bases. But I just want to finish up with the BDS movement. I think there's been a purposeful conflation of, you know, by you know, Zionists and people who have, you know, vested interest in making sure Israel is, you know, viewed as not a brutal apartheid regime, and conflating any sort of critique of Israel with anti-Semitism. At the same time, Jay-Z's a bad rapper, so who cares? But like, it is worthwhile engaging with that. Not him being a bad rapper, but with his lyrics, because like that has been oftentimes the justification for hate crimes against the Jewish community, right? And you know, this is one of the issues that bears a lot of nuance, especially as we start, you know, we start talking about like the different types of, you know, just different ethnicities that exist within Judaism, right? The different races of stuff like that. But I mean, that's a conversation for a different time. Because I do want to get into like this progressive civil war, and we have one of, I guess, the colonels or generals of the Civil War with us tonight, and that is Anoa. So please, can you tell me what the fuck is going on and why I should care? Because y'all people are blowing up my timeline, all of you.
Mine too. All day.
I
just got back. Let's just be honest. If I didn't have to G-check people on a regular basis on Twitter because people with their large ass platforms want to be like, don't come at me, don't be coming for me. No, please. Like people act like I'm scared of them. Like, do you know where I'm from? Like,
what is happening? What is happening?
Yeah.
Like,
thank you.
And you can call me, you know, wannabe sister soldier, whatever the hell else.
What is happening?
Comments people have. I don't give a fuck. What is happening? So, what is happening is a lot of folks are Johnny come lately to the fact that myself, Karen, Beth, Katie, Wendy, you know, the whole crew, our lefties lady crew, most of us are women of color, had some ongoing conversation almost 2 weeks now. I think some other folks, you know, Kieran and Brittany and other folks might have been posting about this before, but, you know, Caitlin Johnstone has, you know, written, I guess now at this point, 4 pieces in this line of increasingly incoherent mumbo jumbo. But, you know, the first 2 pieces, and folks can disagree or agree or whatever the case may be. I really don't care at this point who wants to debate the merits of her arguments, because she herself does not have the wherewithal to debate the merits of her arguments, right? She's a coward. So what happened was, you know, there was a thread with like Katie and Beth and, you know, several folks who are affiliated with Progressive Army. You know, actually, folks don't know this. I'm not affiliated with Progressive Army anymore. I love everybody very dearly, but I'm not. If you've noticed, I haven't been on Ben's channel. Actually, this is the first time I've been on Ben's channel, probably in about 2 or 3 months. And you know, it is what it is. But everything's all good. Love all to the fam. But so this whole notion has been a supposedly Progressive Army where a bunch of Soros paid shills who are, you know, for Hillary Clinton and DNC, we're trying to get people back into being Democrats, and we're undermining real progressives doing real work. Total horseshit. And it's all started from critique of Katie Johnstone's. The first, she had, like I said, she had 2 articles. One was about, you know, lefties need to something with anti-establishment right. She uses these really euphemistic phrases, right? And it's playing semantics. I didn't say the alt-right. No, you said alt-light. You said a bunch of other things. I mean, come on. The people you're using, we know what the hell you mean. The second piece, she's like, I further clarifying. So what happened was, so we were having a conversation in a Twitter thread. It's public. People could come in and out of mentions as they please, whatever. We could have been having it in a DM if we wanted nobody to be involved. But so we were sharing our opinions and thoughts. You know, some folks were less kind about it than others. I mean, it is what it is. It's Twitter. So she comes into our mentions. We were mutual follows. Like, I really have never read any of her stuff. We were mutual follows. You know, folks, I generally follow a lot of people back. So we were mutual follows or whatever. And so she's like, well, here's my article that explains more detail. I was like, yeah, hun, I already read your articles. I read both of them. So now that you're here in our mentions, you can answer some questions just like that. So I asked a bunch of questions. And she insisted that I was trying to destroy her with mischaracterizations, and this was pure violence and all other hysterical Hillary bot
Were you
type
taking her out of
BS.
Context? That's my favorite. Like, when someone told me I'm taking
No. Like, I literally asked questions. Like, one of my questions was, because the second piece, there were 2 pieces initially. The second piece was a clarification. It was about how we can join up to take down, you know, corporate media. Right. And so my question was, how do we align? One of the several questions I asked was, how do we align with propagandists and those who manipulate information to take down a system that propagandizes and manipulates information? Like, because for me personally, logically, that doesn't really make sense. Because if we're really, you know, against propaganda, we're really against misinforming people, we're really against manipulating with lies and alternative facts. If these are things that we're really dead set against, why in the hell would we work with people who do the same exact thing, who have really large platforms and reaches of their own, and who are actually responsible for a lot of the really bad ideas and concepts that people on the ground have that lead to some of the voting behavior that actually undermines their condition? So why the hell would we feed into that and support them, even if it's just so far as, well, we both agree that CNN is bad? Okay, we all can agree that something is wrong, but that doesn't mean that our motives, doesn't mean that our agenda or our ultimate goals are actually the same thing. And so for me personally, as someone who does engage in activism, organizing, really trying to build with people, particularly the people they claim they want to reach, this is not helpful. Like, why would we do things that actually undermine someone's condition and their ability to get access to the resources, information that can lift them up? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. I'm also not driven by clicks. I also not driven by patrons. I have a meager little Patreon account that covers like subscriptions and stuff, but I'm also not really focused on, oh my God, I might lose people and I might not be able to pay my bills if I don't say some more outrageous and egregious shit. So I can say what I mean and mean what I say, and I stand by everything. I don't care who threatens with screenshots and whatever. I mean, I mean it. I'll give you the screenshots. I'll give you the DMs. Like, I don't care. So this snowballed, right? So she immediately, so it's literally at 18 minutes. It's about 18 minutes from on July 15th, because I've had to share the screenshots with folks so many times because everyone's like, oh my God, you guys are being bullies. You're piling up on her. This is what I don't understand about bullies, right? And this is what I don't understand about people who came out of the Bernie Sanders stuff, progressive folks, and what's happening right now. Like, because this is literally insanity. And this is literally what Hillbots did to us for a long time, right? Blah, blah, blah. You know, Hillary's so great, da-da-da-da. Bernie people, well, there's this fact, here's this receipt, here's this street. Oh my God, you're sexist, that's violent, what's wrong with you? Oh my God, block. This is literally what's happening. If you produce counterpoints, if you produce criticism, if you ask questions, that's not violence. And when someone says that's violence, when you say that to a Black woman, you're telling a Black woman that expressing herself and discussing a topic is violence. And then somehow, then you go on platforms like whether you're on with David Cobb and the Green News Network, who David, even though I was annoyed with the interview that she did, because people are not involved on Twitter, they don't understand the context of what's going on. So then you allow someone like Caitlyn to go on, whether it's H.A. Goodman and Tim Black defending her, or whatever the case may be. You have all these people who only know what she is saying and writing and not understanding the context of actually what happened. Because now it's this whole big colossal conspiracy that Progressive Army is trash and we try to take her down. And really, we're a group of people, and I'll say we're because I still, love and am affiliated with folks who believe in critical thinking. We often don't agree. I mean, I swear to God, if I could show folks the old You know, shout out to Niz and Kelly who just had a baby. But if I could show them some of the screenshots for me and Niz going at it, I'm probably the reason why Niz left Progressive Army. Let's just be real. I'm probably the reason why he left y'all hanging.
Show them the screenshots of our first conversation.
Oh my God, John and I, like John and I, right? Like so people, when they're passionate about issues, we're gonna debate, we're gonna argue, but that doesn't mean someone's trying to destroy you. What becomes destructive then, though, is the misinformation and misrepresentation of an initial conflict. Conflict is not bad. You know what I'm saying? Like, we need to work through struggle and uncomfortable situations to get to a better place. So people are like, well, we have to be able to reach Trump voters. Okay, let's talk about that. Because if we really want to reach people and we want to uplift them, because we believe that the way Republicans have done things in misconstruing facts, of misleading people and undermining their existing condition and impressing people, why would we go to an even worse version of that type of propaganda machine for help in doing anything? That's like literally going to the local mob boss for a loan and having to pay a ridiculous amount of interest on the back end because you needed a quick fix right now. So
the biggest argument I've seen, and the best one that I've seen against it, is exactly what happened this week, which was, you know, the alt center has used it as a weaponized form of argument against anyone on the left. You know, like throughout the entire primary, all we kept hearing was Bernie Sanders supporters are sexist, they're racist, they're horrible people, they are Trump supporters in costume, and you know, we can't ally with these people. And then all of a sudden, you have the only piece of fact that I've ever seen any of these people put forth, which is someone on the left who's making the argument to join up with the alt-right and join up with Cernovich. And it's like that right there weaponized the entire narrative of Bernie Bro, which we had put to bed, and they brought it back.
I mean, I agree with that, especially because here's the thing, like, here's what we're seeing. We're seeing this idea that if you don't agree with everything that I say, you can't be my friend, right? We're seeing, especially, at least the views that I've got on Twitter, the way I've been seeing it is it's been the white left, this white American left coming out and saying, hey, we have to work with the alt-right. And so when you do these things, and you're basically saying, I'm willing to trade the safety and well-being of people of color, of LGBTQIA plus folks, of undocumented folks, of other marginalized groups. Like, that's what you're saying. You're saying, because this isn't a one-time thing. This is how you go down that path to alt-rightism. And there's folks I could call out right now on the show. I won't do that. I might do it on Twitter, though, because I'm really, at this point, I'm kind of overseeing a lot of this shit from these people.
I'm tired of
Huh? They're coming out here, like, they're coming through this, and they're going and they're marching further and further and further to this alt-rightism. You cannot scapegoat the very people that we talk about helping. Those of us on the left, when we and I say the people we talk about helping, when I mean these marginalized groups, these marginalized folks, throw all that work under the bus because you want to get a 5 minutes of shine, because you don't like CNN. Like, so as far as I'm concerned, these people that are making this argument, they do it because the alt-right is their natural ally. These white leftists, their closest friend is that alt-right. Their closest ally is that Richard Spencer, because they have the same kind of views in saying,
no,
like
misunderstand. No, not Richard Spencer.
So here's the thing.
Spencer.
I don't understand. Here's why I disagree with you a little bit.
And I disagree with Adair a little bit too. Not much, but a little bit.
And it's like, it's not that they have the same, like, people aren't that different, like, their personality traits so much as they are in terms of, like, their, and it's like, and oftentimes you have people, like, you know, people complain, there is a certain segment of the population who just, like, hates Hillary Clinton, and they mask it with actual factual, like, arguments, like, oh, well, she did X, she did Y, but they just hate her for whatever reason. And this whole problem to me has, you know, began like this, like, because this has been clogging at my feed, like this internal schism on, like, Twitter left have been clogging at my feed for months now. And it all started with the DNC fraud lawsuit, and which
I have all that muted.
Which began as a relatively important, or, you know, at least interesting analysis of, well, hey, the DNC did this thing. We have evidence of it, and if nothing else, they should suffer the social cost, and like in terms of their image, of having to say, we don't have to have a fair election, in the sense that it doesn't have to be, entirely impartial on our part. And that, like, to me, that was a good thing, right? If you think it's a private club and they can do that, they should have to wear that around their neck. I think anyone who says like, oh well, it's not important because everyone should know that, and they shouldn't have to say it, is being a piece of shit and a liar, because like they should have to say it. They should have to put it on the front door. This is not impartial. We will do what we want. I think that's an important thing. And anyone who doesn't feel that way is kowtowing to power, and they don't want to they don't want the party to suffer in the end of the day. And that spiraled into the set the rich stuff, and that spiraled somehow into Pizzagate. And now we're here, and it's just like all this says to me that the leftist does have its own set of grifters that are simply interested in getting attention, and that right there, the act of getting attention is their defining character trait.
But here's the thing, though.
That's why I disagree with Richard. Like, oh, like they're just like Richard Spencer. Like they are.
No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said. That's not what I said. I didn't say they're just like Richard Spencer. I said their natural ally is the Richard Spencer.
Okay, so here's why, and I guess I'll clarify your point, or I'll say how I interpret that to mean. Like their natural ally is from like Richard Spencer, or maybe not Richard Spencer, because I don't know Richard Spencer's internal monologue, but their natural ally are people like, say, Sargon of Akkad, or like Dave Rubin, and that like they're natural allies because their sole goal is getting attention and getting more PR for themselves. And yeah, they might believe in Black Lives Matter, they might believe in Standing Rock, they might believe that the corporate media is a problem, but that all comes secondary to getting themselves attention. Like, Standing Rock, having attention is not as important as themselves at Standing Rock getting attention. And this comes down to like this particular personality trait of like, hey, their work is defined as increasing their own platform, and they're jealous of the alt-right. They're jealous of the alt-right, they're jealous of the alt-right, and they're jealous of the large platform that they have, and they want that large platform. And maybe they can gussy it up to themselves and say, oh, I want that large platform so I can bring more attention to these issues that don't get enough attention. But really, the key aspect that you should never, like, they just want that platform, and they will do anything, they will align with anybody to get that platform. And a lot of that is because they see Mike Cernovich, they see Cassandra Fairbanks, they see them at the White House, they see Richard Spencer on CNN, and they want that. And they never stop to think to themselves, well, maybe these people are at these places because they're not anti-establishment.
Yeah.
It's like maybe Richard Spencer's on CNN because despite what people want you to believe about like the alt-right or whatever, little subsection or subpopulation of far right he falls into, I don't really give a shit about that. I think that's a lot of nuances like maybe unimportant when it comes to Richard Spencer. Like when you talk about Trump voters, I think that is important. We'll get to that in a second. But like they see that and they don't consider the possibility that they're not anti-establishment. What they are is the establishment taken to its extreme. And that, my friend, is why they get platforms.
Well, the notion of being anti-establishment. Let's just talk about this, right? It's more like being. It's really a cute turn of phrase. Again, this gets back to my point, which was my sole point about this, about people who manipulate facts, manipulate terminology. They're grifters, right? They're ideological grifters, and they're not really anti-establishment. They might be anti this iteration of establishment, but they themselves are not anti-establishment, because if there's a void, you think these people are not going to fill that establishment void with their own bullshit. No, like, so there isn't the same ethos. And I just had someone message me saying, well, most people who are labeled alt-right are really just Ron Paul types. No, those are libertarians. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Most libertarians are not who people are calling the alt-right. The alt-right is or the alt-light, or whatever the hell the euphemistic term people want to use. It's a very specific, wing that we have seen in the political sphere. It's been on the fringe, and it gained more steam and more central notice and location during this presidential election cycle. Folks were not mad about the media when they was getting all the good coverage, when news outlets were misreporting, you know, people's violence when it was really them. You know, they weren't really, you know, concerned when they were getting to be front and center, when they go on, you know, roundtable discussions unchecked without anything at all. So all of this now is only because they don't like the news coverage of Donald Trump or their positions and stuff like that. And let's talk about being anti-establishment. How in the hell are you anti-establishment and you running citizens for Trump? Jack, what's
and I mean,
like because that's many other people. But like, there's a real serious issue. I think we got to call it what it is.
So let me just jump in here for
one point.
Hold on, Brandon. You talk a lot.
One point is that, you know, we talk about anti-establishment, and you see how many publications and how many news organizations put Richard Spencer on their column space, and how many
was it Mother Jones that was talking about how cute or whatever the hell that one article was? I mean, the coverage.
Mother Jones started it,
right? But how many of those same organizations have put the new leaders of the DSA up there? They haven't. When you're talking about socialism, they you know, the Washington Post hires Brett Stevens, and they hired, New York Times hired Brett Stevens, a climate denier and a right establishment.
Islamophobe.
Yeah, exactly. And yet, you know, you don't see any of the socialists being given this type of airtime. You don't see any of the socialists being given any of this. You want to talk about anti-establishment? That's the anti-establishment. The white nationalists fuel a level of establishment that is in existence and that our entire society was predicated on. And, you know, we're trying to change that and shift that. And that's why they're still given airtime, because they're hearkening back to a time where it has had more power, and they themselves want to hearken back to that time. And that's what this whole Kekistan and white national movement is all about. I mean, you looked at Prison Planet just got owned online from a British historian talking about, you know, how London, based on the Roman Empire, was actually a multicultural place, more so than most other European places. And you know,
Prison Planet is a globe cuck with the reddest lips I've ever fucking seen in my entire life. Yes. It's like I've never seen someone like prison. I don't know what his real name is. Like I think it's Joseph Paul Watson. like Joseph Paul Watson. That motherfucker looks like he drank the entire Kool-Aid, man. His lips are so goddamn red. And
why are you so stupid?
But every time I see him in pictures, like he has like the reddest lips. It's really weird, but not like lipstick, but like that he had something that he was like eating a red icy.
It makes me think
of the fridge full of red icy.
It makes me think of the Mentats from Dune, except for the fact that he's dumb as fuck.
but you don't have to be smart.
He's a twisted. He could be a twisted man. No, you're right. They were still really smart either way.
But you don't have to. But you don't have to be. You don't have to be smart or have a deep, engaged understanding of history to appeal to these people. And this is, this comes down to what you're like largely saying, right? This is why horseshoe theory is bullshit, and like unless it's in the most superficial, dumbass ways, right? But do you want to get in here, Adair, before I say what I'm going to say?
Yeah. So basically, what we're talking about, because I agree with you, right? They are the establishment, period. But that's also part of why I say that they are the natural allies of the alt-right, because the whole movement of this alt-right is A, based on strengthening the state, B, it's based on this idea of getting attention. It's based on this idea of I need this platform. And the reasons for having that platform are different, right? So the Richard Spencer of the world feel he deserves a platform simply because he's white. Mm-hmm. These people may believe they deserve a platform simply because they are who they are. But that shared ideation of I need to have a platform, you must give me a chance to speak, is part of why I feel they are natural allies. Also because the establishment, as has already been stated so eloquently by everybody else on this panel, is inherently white supremacist. These people aren't against the establishment. They're against whoever won't give them a voice. And so the establishment gives them that voice. The fact of the matter is these people that were born in the United States, were raised in the United States, have white supremacist ideals because that is the kind of country we live in. So just based on that, they are naturally aligned with these folks on the right. I think it's ridiculous. I think you're right. No, I think they are ideological drifters, but we have to also look at the culture in which people are raised. And when you're raised in this culture, and again, I'm seeing this from my view, from what I'm getting in my Twitter feed, from what I'm getting in my mentions, is coming from white leftists. And they are defending not only working with the alt-right, but actually the alt-right in and of itself as an ideology and a movement. Why I say these folks are naturally aligned with them. it's just going to get worse. It's just going to get worse because you're going to start seeing a lot of these bigger names move over to that side because it's a snowball effect. They're going for the biggest audience. They're going for the biggest splash they can get. They want to find a way to monetize this, and the best thing to monetize is whiteness. That's just how this country works.
Here is like, I think it's worthwhile because horseshoe theory comes up so often in amongst the center. It's their favorite little pet theory that the far right and far left are exactly the same. And I think, and it's stupid. Like it's fucking dumb. Right. But I think understanding why it's dumb is important, and understanding why it might, if you're operating in good faith, it might seem like it makes sense, right? So I do agree that perhaps like the best, like the left versus right dichotomy as it exists on the political spectrum is useless at today, right? It's not as useful as it maybe once used to be. Maybe it was never really useful. A better dichotomy to understand the world in, or rather American politics in right now, or maybe just generally Western politics, is. Did you guys say something, Noah? Or
I was gonna say, just looking at the news, they're voting on the healthcare bill. The GOP just voted in 2 hours, so they're having a midnight vote.
Yeah, of course, 3 a.m.
Yeah, of course they are, because they're pieces of shit too. But what I was gonna say, we'll be at this for a long time, so we can address that in a few minutes. But so there are different flavors of anti-establishment, right? Insofar that the far right is not anti-establishment. It's not anti the foundational ideology or aspects or bigotry or oppression or material conditions of society. It's anti-establishment in a very, very specific, shallow way, which is like it's anti very mainstream institutions. It's not a counter culture so much as it is a counter specific incarnation of that culture. Like it doesn't like CNN, because CNN is they're race cucks or whatever. It's not a coherent critique of material conditions or the social conditions of society or the history of how we got here. The same way the far left is. It's just grievance politics in its most petty level. And so people on the far left, which are now, or people who proclaim to be on the far left, and maybe they are on the far left ideologically, maybe they believe in that stuff ideologically, but attention is their most motivating factor, are giving credence to this idea of horseshoe theory because they see in the far right A, the ability to get more attention, and B, a similar grievance with the mainstream media for not giving them the kind of attention that they want.
I think that grievance actually is kind of important because for so many of us, especially those of us on the left, like we were talking about earlier today, Brandon, and especially with the Democratic Party, we've been told that our grievance is non-existent. We've been told that the country is good enough already. So many people have had their grievances ignored that now anybody that pays attention to that is given like, well, this guy could be an ally. It's like,
absolutely.
Well, no, they're paying attention to your grievance for a very specific purpose, and that's to co-opt your movement and co-opt your energy into putting it to something that won't benefit you.
Well, I just wanted to say quickly that not the co-opting part, but by anyone speaking to your grievance, I think Bernie Sanders picked up some of the alt-right, some of the far-right, some folks that could recognize Trump for the con man that he was and realized that Bernie was their only alternative. And while they disagreed with him a lot, they had the perspective of, well, while I disagree with him on these things that I find fundamental, we both don't like CNN or we both don't like Congress or whatever. And so rather than the con man Trump, I'm going to go this way, even though they were alt-right. And so you see some of that, those people that were left out of that, the evolution of Bernie, that move towards Trump or towards this alt-right, towards the Richard Spencers, towards that group of people.
You can see that with a lot of people quoting Rand Paul and saying, hey, Rand Paul is against money in politics. And it's like, well, yeah, Rand Paul is against money in politics and he thinks money is a corrupting evil. But at the same time, his solution is radical transparency and no limits on any money in politics. Like, that's not a solution that will work for anybody. And that's not a solution that anyone should be pushing. What you can work with Rand Paul on is you can work with Rand Paul on specific policies, and you can work with Rand Paul and the libertarians on specific policies as long as you're vigilant on how those policies are shaped. But you cannot go into it thinking like, we're going to work together. We're going to create a coalition. We're going to create an allyship to get money out of politics without recognizing the fact that his end goal isn't necessarily money out of politics. It's all free market.
But see,
that is a brilliant example and breakdown, John, because that is exactly what people need to be looking at. You need to look at what is the end goal. What do people mean when they say, people just say, oh, we're saying the same thing. No. What does it mean? Like,
we're not even saying the same thing though.
No, not you. No, I'm not saying that you all are saying the same thing. I said people say that though, right?
Exactly.
We can all work together because we're saying the same thing. But they'll take some really simplistic sentence like, we're all anti-war. No, actually, we're not really all anti-war, and I don't really know that you actually understand what being anti-war really actually means. Because being anti-war, because you don't want to be in Syria, you don't want the U.S. to be in Syria, for example, is not quite being completely and totally, anti-U.S. militarism and imperialism and a bunch of other things too that actually go into what the U.S. war machine really is all about. But I really thought that was a really great illustrative point, John, about how, what seems to be to a novice person not really digging in deep, the same exact thing. Once you really start looking under the surface, it's not. And people need to be clear about what they're signing up for.
But I mean, and that anti-war one is a really good example, because the anti-war one is very interesting, because they're, like you said, the alt-right is on the surface anti-war, but what they really want is they want a closed border and they want to basically bomb the shit out of everybody else. That's not anti-war. Now, can we work with people? Let's say there are congressmen who are alt-right, and I don't know of any that are wielding the levers of power. But can we work with them to pass a bill like Tulsi Gabbard's bill to stop arming terrorists in Syria? Yes, we can, but we have to understand that they're going to try and slip something into that bill that would make it not something we would support, and that's what we have to fight. So yeah, you can say, look, will you vote for this as it stands, and pressure them to vote for it as it stands. And that's the pragmatism that Brandon was talking about earlier, where there has to be a pragmatic approach, but you have to go into it with eyes wide open. You can't think of these people as allies. You can think of them as potential support in a limited fashion.
Yeah. Like when we talk about, we have to be careful about who we talk about, because I don't feel that that's actual tactic we can use the alt-right. I feel you can do that with libertarians. A good example of that is I have a friend who identifies as a libertarian. She and I agree on a lot of these social issues. She and I agree on things like decriminalizing drugs, on things, those gay marriage needs to be same-sex marriage, rather, is something that needs to be, done. We agree on a lot of social issues. Like, we don't agree on a lot of economic policy. Like, really, we don't agree on any economic policy, and we don't really agree on any foreign policy. So those are things that you have to be like, okay, can I work with this person because they agree with exactly what I'm saying? I can work with occasionally I can work with a libertarian. Occasionally I can work with one of them because they believe in the same thing.
And there's also occasional ground you can give with the libertarian that you can't give with the alt-right.
Exactly, and that's my point, is that we have to start taking that into account. With some folks, there are things we legitimately agree on. We have some of the same end goals. With the alt-right, we don't have any of the same end goals. Because our end goal in getting rid of things like CNN is to have actual fair and unbiased media. We're going to try to get media in there that has nuance, that actually does its goddamn job. What the alt-right wants to do is install a propaganda outfit. That's all that they want. So we're fundamentally different from the jump.
Right. We want a collectively owned media company, and they want Breitbart.
They want Breitbart. They have Breitbart, but like what they want,
but they want
that to entirely supplant. They want that to entirely supplant CNN. And so I have a few points to make. John makes a great point, right? Like, I thought we were supposed to be moving, the people who love Bernie, who profess to love Bernie, I thought we were supposed to be moving towards a more proactive, hope-based, version of politics, right? One that sought to, do what we were talking about in the first half of the show, which was install institutions and agencies that gave the future and gave the most marginalized people, the future of the most marginalized people, and really everybody, more tangible, manageable qualities. I didn't think that we were supposed to be finding who has the most basic, shallow, reactive policy positions that we also superficially share, and teaming up with them to, question mark, utopia. because that's what it seems to be, right? It's a version of, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And when Bernie Sanders did that, these people threw him out whole cloth. Like now Bernie's working with the Democrats. It's like, well, I guess he's evil now. It's like, okay, so like a drop of Democrat money.
I really do actually blame his campaign strategists and the way they did not deal with the growing grassroots movement and the clear, apathy that was coming down the pipeline. Like quite honestly, like the backlash that is happening right now and the sheer chaos that we have seen post primary, really, right? Post convention, post the DNC, exactly. What we've seen the past year, right? The sheer chaos, the real, the deeper, intense anti-establishment mentality, the really hateful attitude. Because coming out of the DNC, even like during the DNC, coming out of the DNC, the way Jeff Weaver in particular handled things, it really turned people hard. It really, the way Hillary's campaign and the DNC handled Bernie, right? Bernie delegates. When that happened, and then all of us watched it happen, it really, really broke people. Right. And I don't really think that the proper work and the actual value and investment on what this movement really was, I don't think neither he nor any of his campaign, generals, operatives or whatever, really understood that or really appreciated that we were more than just a $27, machine that to brag about, or folks to show up at a town hall or a barnstorm or a phone bank. Like people really believe, this is it's like being John Malkovich, like everyone was inside of it. They really became Bernie and thought that was them. So when it's an existential crisis that happens to the movement, and when you see basically like our father, our granddad, the leader, then saying, well, deuces, who cares how y'all got beat down and all this other stuff. Like that part, no, seriously though. Like seriously. This is the psychosis. This is the psychosis.
I see that, but here's the issue with that. No. I agree with that. But here's the issue, right? That's exactly what people accuse the Clinton supporters of doing, right? Of completely supplanting their ego with Clinton and ignoring all of the pragmatic.
This is what I'm saying. It's invasion of the body snatchers, because Bernie supporters and Clinton supporters are very similar.
And that was my
in that respect.
Yeah, and that was my initial point, right? Like we would be moving to a better version. We're going to be moving to a better version of politics that didn't do that. That was focused on practical solutions and not making celebrities of our politicians. But it's very clear that they did that. Go ahead. Sorry.
But the one thing that is a difference between the Clinton supporters and the Bernie supporters is Clinton had an entire party, an entire media establishment, an entire group of entrenched power backing her, and those people are still around and those people are still running things. With the Bernie people, all they had was Bernie and his campaign. You had some surrogates that are still prominent, but for the most part, all you had was this one guy. And so when that one guy decided that, based on, I believe, and I'd like to believe that it was based on faulty fucking advice. I mean, look at who he hired post-campaign. I listened to Ari Ravenhawk every morning for probably about a year driving to work every morning. That guy is a decent human being, but he is as centrist as it gets. And Bernie hired him to be his senior advisor right out the gate after the DNC. And it's kind of like, why are you hiring this guy when you have so many people who poured blood, sweat, and tears into organizing for you? You have so much talent that you have readily available to you that understood strategy, that understood what was going on, and understood it in a way that a sea change was happening, and most people didn't recognize that. And instead, you're still working within this corrupt system as for fear of either being Naderized in history or for fear of shattering the Democrats in general, when really you should have been shattering the Democrats. You should have been going with a hammer and saying, you're done. This old way, neoliberalism, is done. And the fact that he didn't do that has created a gigantic psychosis on the left. And I mean that in terms of the left being...
You are absolutely correct, because when you speak so Bernie has this conviction and he's speaking from this position and there's no way but this, and this is the moral authority, and there's something deeply wrong in America. When you put this shit in people's heads, and we got all the people out there that we got, and you don't give any like guideposts or anything like that. So people are just running with it, right? They're building it. This is the political revolution. Everybody just needs to get up and build it, and we'll all do our own thing. And people do just that, right? For the past year in the state of this. I mean, it really is kind of like, it's a stupefied position that people have been in, trying to, you know, figure out and what to gravitate towards. And there isn't any real centering force to bring folks together. People keep talking about unity or we're divided or whatever. I mean, quite honestly, we were only quote unquote united because we were all working towards Bernie Sanders getting elected. Once you remove Bernie Sanders getting elected without any type of thing to transition to, right? Because people had a really bad taste in their mouth about a lot of stuff. Like after the way he basically showed no real heart during the DNC. You know, I mean, I guess we're now in a 1 year reflection later, you know, part of the conversation now, because we are a year post DNC now. Like, you know, he showed no heart. Like he and his top staff showed, the only one who had any heart coming out of that was Nina Turner. I mean, like, and consistently, because even when you look at the difference in their interviews, and I know, you know, Senator Turner respects, you know, Senator Sanders very much, and they work very closely together. She's now president of our revolution. I appreciate the fact that she is supportive and she understands that I don't have the same opinions as her. But at the same time, you know, Bernie, who was the leader, who people were looking to, showed no damn heart. And, you know, he did what he had to do to save the party. It's like Lincoln, right? I'll do whatever I have to do to save the Union, even if, I mean, whether I have to free the slaves or not. And he made a Lincoln decision. And it kind of left a lot of us, you know, feeling kind of, because I admit, even as a social media, you know, digital organizer type person, I felt lost because I was annoyed with the push that everybody was supposed to just support Jill Stein for various reasons, even though ultimately I personally voted for her. I was annoyed that my pages were supposed to immediately just become her pages. I'm like, you all haven't, you know, earned my vote either. Platforms are nice, but I can wipe my butt with paper. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. And so it was a very weird place to be in, and it still is a very weird place to be in for a lot of people, and it shows in the Discord.
We have no captain. We have no captain. We're a ship. We're going in a direction, but we're starting to break out into, rather than one ship, we're starting to break out into flotillas, and we have no fucking captain. And
I'm gonna be real.
But you know, we don't necessarily need one, but we didn't create the organizational structure without with having no captain in mind. We created it and we worked towards it and we built it with having a captain. And then to be left without a captain and to be left without direction caused a lot of people to have some serious problems.
I don't know. I'm saying, because I like thinking about this now, especially going back here, because I think we have three really unique positions here with the organizer, Noah, with you being out there and helping cover stuff, John, and me actually being on the inside as a delegate. Like, I went through months of going out of my way, going out to caucuses, talking to people I don't know, running a caucus. This is my first ever time doing something like that. It was my first time showing up because it's the first presidential election.
Oh, you millennials, you overachieving millennials, I tell you.
Like they throw me in the fire, like, hey, run this caucus. All right, fine. Voted for Bernie. Worked my ass off. I'm not like, now it might seem weird to y'all because I do the show. I'm comfortable giving speeches in front of 400 or 500 people. Philadelphia. Then we get to that point where we're like, man, all right, cool. We're going to Philly. We're going to fight for Bernie. Raised thousands of dollars just to get there, just to go and to deal with that, and then to feel like, because for me at least, put out from underneath me by Bernie. I felt left. I felt betrayed. I felt hurt. When he sat there and was like, I'm just going to work with Clinton, I'm like, I'm sitting here being like physically grabbed, spit on. I'm watching friends get drug off the floor. I'm being called homophobic slurs. I'm being called ethnic slurs. I'm being targeted by police. I am afraid out of my goddamn mind right now. I watched friends get attacked by Hillary supporters on the goddamn floor. For me, that hurt.
Well, yeah, I mean,
yeah, it's hard to believe you're describing the DNC, not the RNC convention that you accidentally stumbled
into. Right. But one thing, but just back up even to like the week before, right? Like delegates, and I remember actually it just came up in my timeline some days ago about when he made the announcement to endorse her, because you know it was being rumored, and we were all doing coverage, you know, together then, And I kept saying to people on Twitter, I was like, what are y'all going to do when your boy, because I was already done, but because knowing what was going on in California, knowing that there was no money set aside for, African-American outreach in California, knowing that they were wasting they were pulling back, they were doing more large rallies, they were not investing in ground. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. And what's really disappointing is that people all over, people all over the country were prepared and were ready and were just waiting for the campaign because they were so hopeful and optimistic. The campaign would come in, set up shop, not utilize the strength of the local organizing that existed. I mean, California had been organizing for a whole damn year by the time the campaign had got there, and literally didn't use any of it except for bodies to work events and stuff. I mean, it was insulting for a lot of people. And the problem is, though, that when it comes time to him, like, there was not any understanding of a duty or accountability to the people, right? Who made it possible for him to even still be in it come May, June, July, talking about we taking it to the convention, right? It's a total level, and I know people would get really upset, like, oh my God, you're talking bad about Bernie, but no, seriously, right? Like, Bernie only got as far as he did because we built up the damn effort on the ground. Because let's just be honest, in a lot of cases, the campaign sucked. Or there were some really great, I'm not going to, there's some really great staffers out there, but there were a lot of issues. And when that call comes down, the delegates find out in the news that he's endorsing Hillary Clinton. Because and what's going on and how it's being reported. People are raising money. I mean, because everybody who was a delegate understands, or people who went to do it, that was expensive. People sleeping 6 to a room. I mean, people getting donations. A lot of folks, single mom, disabled, retired, students, people who are just working poor and taking off job, unpaid leave to be there, to be a part of democracy. Like, this was such a huge moment for people. So we're in post-election, we're in a watershed moment for grassroots organizing and political revolution politics. You know what I'm saying? We have so Brandon was saying, I thought we would move into this new era of hope. That got squashed because Bernie was not. No. I think what you're saying was right, Brandon. I may have paraphrased you wrong, but I think what you're saying was right. The problem is when you look at what happens from convention to 45's election and beyond, it has been complete misleadership and mismanagement by those who should have been natural leaders for all of us. And here we are in this very decentralized space, and it's chaos and madness, and people are trying to find a way. There's some really great groups. There's some great folks doing things locally and stuff, but that national connection and then the large social media digital organizing space that did exist and flew with a certain harmony, it doesn't exist anymore. And that's what people are feeling as division.
I agree. I think address the cheating at all. Like, he hasn't, nobody on the campaign has addressed the elephant in the room, which is that it is a divisive
but here's
issue.
the thing, if you know, this is what I'm going to say though, right? I'm interrupting you. Like, if you know anything about Bernie, he's not going to address the cheating. You got to know that. And I think that a lot of people, and this is what I meant when I said, and I guess, you didn't miss a category. I'm sorry, you didn't misidentify my argument, Noah, but it is just like, I thought we were trying to move out of this politics that's based on celebrity, cult of personality, not based in the actual substance.
It fell right into it. It fell right into it. Yep.
It fell right into it.
Start looking at people like, whether it be Bernie or Hillary or, Booker or whatever, as vehicles by which our political will are done, not heroes, not people to empathize with, not the Khaleesi, not Harry Potter, not John Travolta, nothing. Like you are the will by which you are either the vehicle by which my political will is done, or you are an obstacle to my political will, period. And and that mentality itself prevents heartbreak. Now, don't get me wrong, when I talk about Bernie Sanders supporters, I think that the cult of personality, because his personality is not that great, right? I think the cult of personality, or rather the personal cult he developed, is.
It is if you're looking for that. He has that endearing old grandpa vibe. The earnest, and that resonates with people. As jaded as I am, he still gets me sometimes too.
And to be honest with you, the thing that really drove Bernie was the platform, and the fact that nobody is, the platform was subsumed by the Democrats, and no alternative platform has been brought out or championed is problematic. You know, I think that we could all organize in a decentralized way for a platform, but the fact that we don't have any national platform going forward that's an alternative to the crappy fucking better jobs, better wages platform is heartbreaking.
Wait, let me finish my point real quick. I didn't just finish it. I guess my point was, no, I didn't talk for a while, so I'm going to say something now. I gave you everyone a chance to go, which is nice of me. But no, and I think that I think that we can talk about the ways in which the lack of media attention, the demonization by the DNC hurt Bernie in like in actual like practical ways, and and getting his message out there, getting votes, doing stuff like that. But it also helped craft this vision of him as this anti-establishment candidate, this anti-democrat candidate, this sort of like person who's willing to buck the party and political norms in a way that he actually isn't. And so like I think that sort of air of, well, he's he's going to do something radical at the DNC, that was that image was crafted by the blackout on him, and it blew his it blew up the idea that he was that kind of person when really he wasn't. He never was, and that's why I say
I think part of what it was that there was Bernie. I think he even mentioned it, was that he was expecting that pressure to come from the people, like basically to give him no other choice but to do so. And I don't think he had enough of a movement and had done enough to inspire people to take such radical action at that point. And I think that inhibited the ability for that to happen, though I mean there's other factors as well. But go ahead, John.
I would disagree with you on that. He didn't do enough to foment that type of movement. I think that he did. I think that what happened post-campaign was that what little airtime that Bernie did get, and what little media coverage he did get, was completely ignored on a grassroots level. Like, so, Draft Bernie immediately started right at the DNC, but that got no national coverage whatsoever. Nobody talked about it.
Well, I think another issue, and this is something my dad and I talked about, by the time we were like ahead of the DNC. I forget when exactly we were having this conversation, but my dad and I were talking about this, in his reflections, and he was just saying, like, there's a big difference if you're talking about really running a large scale organizing platform, social movement, revolution, and running a political campaign. And if Bernie wanted to run the type of political campaign that actually would have given birth to a political revolution, honestly, like something actual that would be lasting now, excuse me, I mean, he really would have had to treat his campaign like a for real insurgency. They were too busy trying to pay traditional DNC ball. And, the rest of us were running grassroots insurgency, and it just didn't mesh. So like, when he did, like you were saying, like when he did whatever he did post campaign, it didn't really get picked up or resonate a certain way. But he also was too busy trying to play, good guy DNC advocate.
Oh, he was. I'm saying the individuals didn't get any media, didn't get any.
No, yeah, I agree. No, I agree. Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, like he didn't, like you said, the missteps for the campaign where they were trying to play inside DNC ball, like that was how they thought they were going to win. In reality, what got them 43% was the grassroots.
Absolutely. I mean, how you gonna go up at the most formidable political machine in the past 50 years, at least on the Dem side, and think you're gonna, we're gonna all do it equal? Like, come on, y'all. I mean, you've been in Washington. You people should have known what this was gonna be about. Did you not watch when she ran for election in 2008? Like, come on now, this was obvious. Like, the writing was on the wall. They were already going all around, patting the coffers and supporting candidates and stuff, and getting the endearing qualities already lined up for when they were going to run. They had the South on lock. The South was done like that on purpose, so that she'd have it all locked up.
And then I understand if he was starting.
One sec, John, because I want to bring this back too, though. So we're talking about specifically what happened after the campaign, and not focus on Bernie. I want to focus on what happened to the people. In particular, I want to focus on what happened to a lot of the delegates, because here's part of the problem with him playing that DNC ball. There's a huge divide. You have a lot of folks that went into those local Democrat parties, and the more I talk to these folks, the further away we get from it, the more you see it's just bullshit. The more you see it didn't actually do anything from actually changing a goddamn thing.
Yep.
Sure, you pick over Democratic parties, and I've extolled the virtues of that before because I thought, well, wow, I see these people in here, I see what they're doing, I'm right here on the ground with them, I'm not a part of this, but I'm watching it, and I think I'm seeing real change. the further along you go, the less change you start to see. In fact, the more you start seeing them become more and more and more establishment. It's just a whole lot of bullshit. The rest of us either gave into our radicalization in the fullest extent. Like for me, just someone that agreed with my politics as possible. And for those of you who don't know, I'm all the way at the bottom left of that map. I am way down there. I'm a hardcore leftist. I'm a hardcore establishment person. I want to tear this motherfucker down brick by brick.
I'm really not that hardcore of a leftist. I had to let somebody know. They were like, "Oh my God, the far left has so many women." I'm not even gonna pretend I'm about all that life. But I support you, bro. I support you.
I found myself further to the left and down than I thought.
Yeah, I'm not as far left. I'm left. I'm not gonna say I'm not, but I'm not anarchist left.
Yeah, I'm left in like towards the middle, not as far to the anarchist as Adair.
Yeah, no, y'all don't like.
Yeah, but I keep it real. You know what I'm saying? I appreciate we can break bread, we can hang out, we can get a beer, you know, share pizza. But no.
I mean, I want to move a little bit back to something that you said. You know, at the beginning of the conversation, like that there is, and maybe I'm going to go a little bit further than you did. Know there is nothing wrong with identifying the disaffected Trump voter, the people who voted for Trump as a middle finger to the system. You know, even the people who are like, you know what, let's just like, you know, fuck this, we're gonna burn this motherfucker to the ground. Like, you know, I think that's a childish thing to do. But you know, there's nothing wrong with identifying those people. I would even say, if I'm going to go further, there's nothing wrong with identifying the people on the who identify as alt-right, who are just, you know, who have fallen through the cracks of society, or, you know, like they're your normal little antisocial, asocial, you know, let's be not honest, 16 to 19-year-old white dude who is taken in by the sociality of the alt-right, like these online spaces, like their symbols, you know, like the camaraderie, the sort of like the countercultural aspects of it, insofar that like this is the only outlet they can find. And I think that's why, you know, it's important to have spaces and media on the left that can be an appropriate space media vehicle for those people, and not like you know, let the right have dominance of that particular genre or type of engagement with the system. Because otherwise, you know, it's important to have shows like this, you know, the bullshit we curse, I call John a cocksucker show, because like you know, because a lot of times it's not necessarily the content so much as it is like appealing to that internal kind of like, what do you call it, like dissatisfaction with the state of the world. Like, you know, it's random. Like, there's lashing out. There's nothing wrong with, you know, identifying those people. But the issue with the idea of working with not even the alt-right, because I would be like, you know, the rank and file of the alt-right, but like the higher ups, like the race grifters that are bitch. I mean,
no, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'll jump in after you finish. I'll let you finish. I'm sorry.
It's like they're not disaffected. They're not even like your everyday average like racist white person who lives in America. What they are, they're race grifters. They're, you know, like they're appealing to the worst aspects of the disaffected people, who the at-risk people. White side hetero patriarchal males can be at risk too. They're appealing to the worst aspects and their worst things, and they're manipulating all of that economic and social anxiety into a new, uglier form. There's nothing wrong with, like, you know, giving those people an alternative. And it's like, but it's not about working with them. It's about building something that can supplant what the alt-right is building. It's about building something that can serve as a legitimate critique of the system, a legitimate critique of capital, legitimate critique of the status quo corporate media, that can entirely supplant the alt-right for those for whom it's possible to supplant the alt-right with. To create a community that they can actually exist in, like to create spaces that they can exist in, and not reach out to those on the alt-right who have these big platforms and, you know, salivate over getting some of their follows and all that other shit that people like to do. Because ultimately the alt-right, like these race grifters, Cernovich, Cassandra Fairbanks, even Richard Spencer, they don't have any power. And that's my final point. There's a difference between working with someone like Steve Scalise, who actually has power, right? And someone like Jeff Sessions, who actually has power, like, to actually get things done. Or even like your everyday average, like Republican, slightly racist Southern school board member who has, like, you know, legislative power to get things done, and political power and political clout. And looking at someone who, you know, writes for, you know, Breitbart and going, oh, like their article has 300,000 hits. Like they must have power. And that, you know, you shouldn't equate attention to power. Especially not in the political system like that. That demonstrates where your priorities are at.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that a common mistake that continues to be made is that people lump in the 24 whatever percent of the population, like that whole block, right? But one, people keep saying we need to work with these people because, you know, they won the election. What won the election is a shitty Democratic campaign and a lot of disaffected voters, those who both voted for Trump because they were upset and those who chose not to vote for various reasons. I can't remember who it was. I want to say it might have been Zach Carter on Twitter shared some charts, some data this morning about how felony, like the effect of felony voter disenfranchisement on the country. And Florida, 10% of the eligible voting, 10% of the population that would be eligible voters are not eligible to vote because of felony disenfranchisement. Then you couple that with other voter suppression issues, like the legal purges we're happening here in Georgia. I mean, you have a decent sized chunk of the population that isn't actually able to vote. And he pointed out the percentage of people actually in Florida who can't vote is actually I think it's equal to or more than the number of people who voted for Jill Stein. I think it's actually more, he said. So there's a lot that's going on, but a lot of people keep saying like, well, we need to talk to these people, which is what justifies talking to the alt-right. And that's a misnomer. One, most people don't identify as quote unquote alt-right, right? Like these people are not speaking for this large actual base of people. They hope to, which is why they want to supplant the existing power structure, because they want to be empowered then to have, you know, that greater access and stuff. But at the same time, when you actually talk, if you really want to reach disaffected voters, if you really want to reach people, you got to go talk to them, build relationships. We're not going to find folks in these silos and stuff where we're at. If we're really trying to create something that's going to, you know, be for the 99%, that doesn't happen with throwing some of us under the bus. To appeal to is actually a minute faction of a fraction, you know, of a population that voted a particular way. I mean, when you really start getting in and talking to people about some of the concerns and issues, I mean, you can't just shrug it off that somebody might have voted because they believe misinformation fed to them by Alex Jones, InfoWars, or whatever these numerous sites that exist out there. You know, the scourge of fake news, we've all, you know, scoffed at it. It's been whatever, but at the same time, we really run the risk of jeopardizing our credibility, but also what really could still be a viable movement, you know, in a new way of engaging in politics. That's not just the same old status quo, business as usual way to go. So, I mean, we really do need to be really clear about what we're talking about. So when we want to reach people who may have been disaffected or who may have voted for Trump, or we want to reach people, and we can't forget about the 48% or whatever it was of people who sat out, who did not vote at all, right?
That's the most telling.
Those are people to be really, because why, right? Those are people, because when I talk with folks in Missouri about how they won with Bruce Frank's race, they didn't just take because, you know, they rank voters and they go for the most likely voter. And Trump's campaign probably did something similar in terms of going after people who weren't on that traditional list. And this is smart. You go after people that have nothing to lose because they're not participating in the system anyway because they don't think it works for them. And you go to them. I'm not saying you go there and you promise them a whole bunch of things and do the exact opposite. What I'm saying is that we build the folks, we build community. Other two things I plug in for People's Party platform process, People's Assembly type of thing, like what's happening with Nikita Oliver. I know you guys had her on. I had her on as well, you know, out in Seattle. That may not work necessarily for everyone in every case in terms of how to run for office as an independent in the way she's doing. But that process of communities coming together and drafting and deciding for themselves what the community priorities, platform, et cetera, are going to be, and then building up leadership that way. It's a bottom-up process. It helps keep us all involved, and it's a built-in accountability mechanism for the folks we're saying should be our leaders. And that's something that we can do across space, whether we're looking in urban, rural, Black, white, Asian, Latino, whatever spaces that we're talking about organizing in. This is a similar type of process that can be used across the line. And I'm really interested in seeing what folks are going to be doing from West Virginia to Ohio to Washington, down here in the South as well. I mean, they have Southern, oh shit, I missed the Southern Assembly's call that I told everyone to be on. There's a Southern Congolese movement, which is a similar type of thing, which I'm trying to learn more about, because I think that's what we really need to start pushing people for. Okay, there really actually is this good stuff that's going on. It's in bits and pieces and in corners here and there. How do we really scale it up? I just because I'm on a email list that I didn't realize my stepdad probably added to me about, you know, imprisoned workers. I think the imprisoned workers, incarcerated workers organizing committee. And what it is there's a conference happening in Tennessee this weekend, a white supremacist group that is basically trying, and it seems like they have this colorblind report, and they're trying to get, they're working with ALEC, they're trying to get this prison legislation passed. So they're having their big conference, Richard Spencer and others, you know, it's a big convening happening in Tennessee. And they're going to, of course, do some teach-ins and counter protests around it. But what they're talking about is exactly what we've been calling attention to, is how insidious this becomes when we start normalizing it, right? We start normalizing these people and their rhetoric, and then they're connected to folks like ALEC. How are you anti-establishment if you're taking money or doing things with ALEC? Hello, like, come on, wake the fuck up, people, please. Like, y'all are being played. You're being played. You're being had. You've been hoodwinked. You've been bamboozled. Like, so I'm actually going to dig into the report that they sent out while we were, this evening. But there's a lot going on. It's more than just, oh, look, we can take down this bright-eyed, bushy-tailed lack of political education thing that's going on with a lot of people. I mean, I'm sorry when I come off condescending sometimes, but I'm real frustrated because what I think would be logical and common sense is really lost. And I think the conversation we had helps me understand better, though. A lot of people are still so raw emotionally a year later that they're just looking for somebody to love them. They really are. Like, oh, he thought I was pretty. He gave me attention. I mean, that's really the stage we're at right now.
I mean,
not to be,
but you gotta learn. You gotta love yourself, though. Like, and that's the point.
You do gotta learn to love yourself.
You have to learn. You have to learn that there are no heroes. It's like democracy is an everyday thing. It's it starts at the personal level and it expands out. It's not like finding someone to supplant your own to be your political avatar and supplant your ego. And I do want to wind the show down, so I want to start getting some final thoughts from everybody. But I do want to say, I think that you're right. I know what the alt-right is incredibly tiny.
Right.
No, the alt-right.
I'm joking.
Tiny. No. The alt-right is incredibly tiny, and their best quality is their ability to pretend and super inflate themselves by being hyper vocal online and getting into the minds of everybody, and also pretending as though they represent everyone who would even consider to be alt-right. That they're representative, at Cernovich or whatever. Or even people like McInnes, who I guess is the alt-right, but I think that's in some ways a meaningless distinction, right? At least not a good one to be making, in our spaces. Because they're all just grifters. But anyway, we also have to stop, as long as not conflating, not allowing Israel to conflate Zionism and Israel with Judaism. Also stop letting alt-righters, white supremacists, race grifters, people who are just purposely leading people down the average people down the wrong path, to stop conflating themselves with the 24% of people who voted for Trump, for even the entire alt-right, because there are people within those movements who if we build the proper structures, if we build the proper spaces, they will come to them. And it's not about making concessions to them. It's about actually performing, producing a credible and attractive and compelling counter narrative. Yep. Not meeting them halfway, not saying, oh well, we all have the same grievance, so we'll give you you'll give us free college and we'll give you slavery and we'll bring back slavery. And it's about saying, okay, you know what, we'll give you free college and you help us close borders and promote free speech on campus and defund UC Berkeley. Yeah, it's about saying, you know what? That's literally what he tweeted out. Which was fucking stupid. We will build these spaces, we will build these structures, and we will siphon off your support. Yeah, that's it. Period. We will build policies, we will build spaces, we will build all these things, and there will be no quarter given to racists. But what we will do is we'll siphon off your support. We will make you defunct and extinct, or the next best thing, we'll leave you with a fraction of your population left, because and the only people left will be the ones who who there really is, either there's no way to reach them or there's no saving, but that they not, but you won't be as strong. Like once we build proper channels, like you won't be the only game in town for these kind of people.
Yeah, but the problem is
so
they're all funded.
Last thoughts, John.
Well, I mean, the only problem I see with that is they're all funded by shady, massive millionaires and billionaires who are giving them money. So,
I'm shady.
They're so anti-establishment.
I know.
So anti-establishment. Sheldon just love them.
But so, I'm going to leave it on the same thing that I've been leaving on. Like, this conversation actually was a better one than I've been than most of the conversation I've been having in my own life about politics and where we're going and what's happening next. And keep heart, keep going. I mean, I know it's incredibly depressing. I know it's incredibly depressing because I'm dealing with it. But we're at a pivot point in politics in the world right now, and you can see that with not only the leftist insurgency campaigns, but you can also see it, like we said, with the far right insurgency campaigns. And we have to make a choice, and we have to make a choice of which way we're going to go. And I feel like, rather than allying with Le Pen, we can go with Mélenchon. And rather than going with, Theresa May, we can go with Corbyn. These are the people, and these are the movements, and these are the messages that we have to adopt. And so just keep that in mind whenever we're talking in political spaces. That's all.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Adair. Last thoughts?
Fuck the woods. Fuck camping. I'm tired, and I'm trying real hard not to fall asleep on y'all right now. It was a great conversation. Big ups to the big sis, but for real though, I don't know how y'all white people do it.
Okay.
I really don't.
I love it. I love camping, man. It's great.
I want to say I'm not white.
Okay.
This shit got me fucked all the way up.
Well, I'm going in a weekend, or not this weekend, but next. So I think I'll struggle through. I'll be all right. I think I will probably be the only black person there, though.
Okay,
anyway,
sorry. This is not bad. This is not bass fishing. This is the discourse.
Shut the fuck up.
We're not pro bass fishing with,
Hey,
I don't know.
We're just trying to appeal to a wider demographic, No, I think there's some important points raised. I'm really happy Anoa joined us. It inspired me to make sure to go check her out and check out her channel and watch some more of her shows, because she was saying some of the things that I needed to hear to help with some of that depressive.
Oh, I actually don't know if I have any. I just have. I was like, I don't know if I have anything inspiring. No. Actually, that's not true. But anyway, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
But yeah, so thank you for joining us. I want to thank everybody for watching, and I know Brandon's been, like I said, busy on the SoundCloud, so that there's lots of stuff to check out there. I think he's got something lined up later tonight that he may be able to share with us. And I guess I wanted to mention about the alt-right and the narratives and the having a counter one. If we don't, we will lose that 48% of people or 44% of people that aren't engaged. That they'll accept it because it'll be the only and best one out there. It'll be the best one because it's the only one that they're at least exposed to. And so it's going to take making those spaces, as are said, and it's going to take a lot of grit and determination and putting in the time and effort. And I know a lot of people were putting in a lot of time and effort during the campaign season. It's going to take that kind of effort and determination during the off seasons as well in building these movements. And so it's important to find the folks like Anoa and others that are helping to build the bridges between those of us that are watching on YouTube and those that are on the ground doing the work. And so I appreciate all that work that's being done, and I look forward to finding out more. And I'll pass it off back to Brandon.
Definitely. I'll just close this out. I was going to say I'll just close this out, with agreeing with John that the problem of creating these spaces on the left is that the Democratic Party crushes these spaces in a way that the Republican Party does not crush the spaces on the left, on the right. It's Democratic Party funders will crush, similar spaces to, to whatever. Oh, sorry, will crush alternative spaces to alt-right spaces, where the Republican Party will elevate them, and even Democratic media, centrist media, will elevate them, making them seem more attractive and the only source for this sort of, the only outlet for this sort of thing. But we, like Noah said, some people are still raw, and ultimately, it's about having coherent movements that are both well organized, but similarly non-hierarchical. Don't have gods in them. Don't have do not have people supplanting the entire ego of those movements, and as opposed to having multiple outlets and multiple power structures. But yeah, so that'll be the end for tonight. Check out the SoundCloud, and if you can, please, it helps a lot to become a patron of the Discourse. If you like the show, share it. Like it really does help too. Leave a comment. If you stuck with us throughout the entire 2 hours, what the hell is wrong with you? But again, the Patreon link is at the bottom of the screen. Unless you're watching, unless you're listening to this on SoundCloud, then it's at the to the right of where the the SoundCloud link is. And if you can, any amount helps. Anything from $1 to fully funding this organization helps. Help us bring you better content. Thanks for joining us.
Brandon still sucks.
I didn't get any final words, but bye. I talked enough. Thank you guys so much for letting me join. It's okay, Brandon. It's okay.
Brandon sucks. Y'all know.
Thank you guys for letting me join. I appreciate you. It's so good. John, I'll see you next week. This is so exciting. I might need a bodyguard because I don't know if I might get assassinated. I'm literally being blamed for the downfall of the Green Party, the progressive movement, and God knows what else right now. Like, I didn't know I had so much power with my unimportant follows and my unimportant show. So it's rather me. It's amazing. How can you be the responsibility of the downfall of civilization and unimportant at the same time? It boggles my mind. But
I'm using the same argument against Jill. So
okay, take us out. Take us out.
No, but seriously though, love you guys so much. Thank you so much for joining me. This is a really great conversation. And we do have to kind of help each other be balanced because it's hard. It's hard. It's depressing. It's difficult. I mean, it's disconcerting. I'll be honest. A couple weeks ago, my mom came over to help me out. I broke down and cried because I'm like, people are so evil and so wicked. When is the mothership coming to get us? Because I can't belong to this planet with these people. I have to be from someplace else. But we just gotta. I mean, the only way we'll be able to keep doing and keep striving, because this has always been a long game, is staying together. Really digging deep in reflection and making sure that we have communication and relationships to fall back on. So love you all. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so proud of you guys. Are doing so well. You guys have been on your own for almost a year now, and you're doing so well.
I mean, we've been doing this like 3 months, but okay.
You've been doing this for a year by yourself.
Cut the stream.
The way with the Noah.